All right. We got Slackline here in about a month or less than a month here in Nashville. We have Exploration as our online weekend workshop. This is the most approachable, I feel, to all of these, and you can access this from anywhere in the world, depending on your time zone and your willingness to stay up. So that's a 2-day weekend workshop. And then we have the Life Map. It's a 2 weekend workshop online as well in August. Then a retreat in October. If you're interested in any of these, head to the website, andrewdaniel.org. All right. Anybody have any questions?
I do. A few.
Great.
Okay, so me and Elaine were speaking like recently, and one of the things I mentioned to her, she said about a part in your book, talking about your self-loathing and your kind of addiction to self-loathing. Do you remember what part of the book it was? Because we're both trying to find it, and we
Oh.
can't remember where it is.
Nope. Um,
She said something about lying down and feeling the drugs of your addiction.
yeah, that might not be in the book.
Okay.
That might be just a story I told.
Okay.
If it was, probably in Just Stop.
Okay. I've skim reading it today and I couldn't find it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Don't know. It
Don't
might
worry.
be something that just is a story I told.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Okay. All right.
Right. Next one is, so I've been reading like the equation of suffering and thinking, I don't know whether I've like interpreted it wrong, but so say if like we're like at minus 500
Hmm.
and you're saying kind of like to stop kind of um stop fixing and stop kind of fixing the problem. But if we're at minus 100 and we stop fixing, we're going to be stuck at minus 500.
The stopping ends the entire equation. When you
But you still
stop, you'll realize that you're not actually negative 500.
okay. But if you're not, because you're saying like zero is like peace and contentment and things like that. But if you're not feeling that peace and contentment,
Then you haven't stopped suffering.
okay, I think I get it.
So you're
Yeah,
trying to figure it out within the bounds of the equation.
yeah, yeah. Oh, let's
89,
do this.
self-consumed. Everybody's all moving the page. Hmm. Not sure if I have that example in there. No, I don't see that in here. It's a good it's a good passage. Um, right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I get you from that.
So what you're doing is you're asking the question about the negative 500 still within the equation.
Okay.
So you're the one that creates the negative 500 to have the five positive 500 to get back to zero, but you just stop the whole thing altogether.
Okay.
So it's like saying, I'm crappy. All right, well, now I need to improve myself to get better. Okay,
Mm.
well, if you just stop the story that you're crappy,
Okay.
you're it just ends everything.
Yeah.
Because if
That
you're still
makes
trying to
sense.
figure out how to balance the equation, you're still in the equation.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
That's why it
sense.
has to be stopping. Because if you just keep doing more, you're within the bounds of that equation still.
Yeah. 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 I do. I do kind of get that. Um, and then the other question that I've got, my last one, is kind of related in a way. So I've kind of realised that one of the reasons that I don't want to kind of feel and go into myself and whatnot is because I hate myself.
Okay.
So I'm
Something
thinking,
as simple and easy as
just
that. Yeah.
yeah, just I hate myself. It's fine. Um, but then I'm like, but if that's stopping me, then I'm like, but do I need to learn how to heal that first before I go into myself? Because that's always going to be a barrier then. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense to me. It's multidimensional. So as you go in and feel and heal those things, you're not going to hate yourself less. But at the same time, if you can hate yourself less, it's going to allow you to go in and feel those things. That's why when we talk about this work and we're in the workshops and everybody's like, whoa, how come we're over here? And it feels like we're doing this. And healing is nonlinear, right? This is a nonlinear process. It's a non-rational process. Um, and so you can heal something here and, let's say you heal this one out over here. Well, then it might drop this something down here 40%, right? So if you heal a betrayal from your sister over here, that might help you, that might reduce your paranoia of somebody taking advantage of you, right? Because it overlaps, because maybe 40% of the reason why you have that paranoia is because of the betrayal of your sister,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
you do that enough times, and it's kind of like watercolor on a paintbrush and you just splatter it. They all the splatters come on the page at the same time, but they're all over the paper. That's one way to look at that. So this is why every area of people's lives improve and change in the long term doing this work. Because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And this overlap in these energies. So with that understanding, you can also address things indirectly. So if you know that there's something that is just so intense, it's like let's say there was a sexual abuse or something just so intense, you can work on things related to it to start softening that up. And so
Mm.
when you're ready to face it head on, it's you already got okay, you already forgave this person and forgave that person, and you've already learned to trust yourself and you've already learned to feel safe. All right, well then when you address this, it's had little bits and layers and percentages
Yeah.
softened up through healing of the other stuff. I'm not sure if anybody is ever, I'm not sure if that's something anybody talks about. It seems common sense to me, but I think how people perceive this process is a straight linear path.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does make sense about the softening. Um, yeah. But sometimes we're so kind of afraid of going like right in gung ho. and just softening it just makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, so I say, all right, I'm pretty much a gung-ho person at this point. Um, but that's after 15 years of going into all sorts of stuff in all areas, and maybe if you have big, let's say, money blocks, well, maybe if you just lay off that and instead focus on your relationships, you might find, oh, as I did, how how linked money and women for me was. It's like, oh, wow, this uh, Venn diagram of how much overlaps. And so I could start healing some stuff around money but I wasn't talking about money. I was talking about my relationships.
Mm.
Um, the thing with those is they're not easily identifiable. So it usually only reveals itself as you're diving into it. Like, oh, well, I can't seem to um, get guys to respond to my text. Okay, well, as you go into that, you might find that there's, let's say, a block. You're not allowing, let's say, love in or something. Well, you transfer that over to your business, and if you have clients, oh, your clients aren't texting you back or getting back to your messages. It could be a parallel block.
Mm.
You don't really know that until you actually dive in. So it's less efficient, but if you're unable to to face it head on, it is a way.
Yeah.
And you're going to heal stuff other way besides it, but
Hmm.
you know,
Fab.
but as well as the just kind of the original question of that is a huge block, um, and it's going to affect everything. So I would first I would first look at what's the connection between self-hatred and not being willing to feel any of this stuff.
Mm.
Because there seems to be a curious jump there. It's not obvious what that's connected to. We'd have to explore deeper into that.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Along with that, too, you do come across things that are substantial. Just they just have a massive gravity to them. Let's say that you're bankrupt. Let's say that you are getting a divorce. Let's say you have a terminal illness. Let's say that you're, something like this, um, suicidal, whatever it is. These extreme things are going to be filtering and affecting everything. So if you can take those parallels um, to your inner stuff to be healed, right? So the parallels to that is, let's say, self-hatred or feeling unworthy or undeserving or unlovable. Those are going to affect everything in life.
Mm.
And what I found is that there are so many dimensions to it. It, it these things kind of have a web. What I mean by this is I've literally gone in and done the healing on I am enough. Okay. I go into that and I feel I'm enough. But then you start saying, like, well, I'm enough for women. Blech. I'm enough for being a millionaire. Blech. I'm enough to be at peace. Blech. So you can really get sort of the core archetypes addressed and healed and sort of cleared out. But when you start qualifying things, you might find that there's markers on all of those. Like all of those have been touched. There's a trail. That undeservedness has left a a limiting belief, a emotional, a trauma kind of trail. It's touched those things. Just like if you have I don't know, a wet brush and you drag it along, it's each of those things are going to still be touched, even if you dry the brush off. However, different metaphor here. Um, if you never address just that fundamental undeservedness, it doesn't matter how many little individual superficial ones that you address. You've missed that fundamental piece. So those qualifiers, the situations, the context, they do change it. And so I found that two approaches, kind of going for the best bang for the buck. What's the thing that's going to have the biggest impact, that's going to have a broad stroke across all areas of your life. So instead of saying this hyper, am I worthy when a 7 foot tall man on Tuesdays asks me out for a coffee in San Francisco? That's way too specific to, I mean, it's just way too specific. Um, you still might get some generalized help from that, but I found that the more chunked up you get, the more it affects a lot of things. Um, so focusing on that, and then with private clients, what I tend to do is we address the stuff as it comes up. So let's say you're dysfunctional in one way, so let's say money, right? So let's say you're unable to get past whatever it is, 50,000 a month, or whatever your number is. And you say, all right, this is my vision. I want to make 50 grand a month. Okay. Well, on your path to embodying the kind of person that needs to be, that has that, all your blocks and traumas, distortions, all of those things are going to arise on the way to get that. And so what that sort of approach, what that does is it's hyper efficient. It's very efficient because we're only working on stuff that arises towards the thing that you want, right? We're not working on how to be more tidy at home. We're working on making that $50,000 a month. So as you go towards that, to embody that and have that archetype within you, what's directly preventing you from owning that and embodying that is going to reveal itself. Now, the interesting thing is that on the way to get there, you might see, oh, my messy home is one of the things preventing me from doing that because it takes my energy out, and blah, 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 blah. So on the path to, let's say, the $50,000 a month, the things that show up may appear like things completely unrelated to it. But we know because it's related to that archetype and that vision, it is related. And so by addressing that, it helps you get closer to doing that. So those are kind of two approaches um, towards doing that.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
That's me. And my questions.
All right. Julie, did you have questions from that page that you posted in the chat?
Sorry, I could unmute myself. Yeah, that page. I was trying to work out, is that where you're stuck, but it's the self sort of thing, a self-made stuckness that you keep going in a cycle of, or I thought that on page 89.
Okay, what's the question?
Well, if you think you're impacting other people and that keeps you stuck because if you move, then you're affecting other people's moves, like a chess game, like if I move here,
Hmm.
I'm going to kill him. I'm going to jump over that. That's going to be dead. But, you feel like if you lift one card, it's going to drop all the cards. Is that what self-consumed means, or that you don't make those moves then because you're taken over by that, like a
Um,
fear now?
yeah, so the self-consumed, um, this is about your actions affecting other people. So let's say, for example, um, okay, so this is in the chapter of narcissism. So for context, right? So this is specifically around narcissism, which is a focus around you. So the self-consumed part that I talk about here is kind of the opposite of somebody who is taking care of everybody else but them, right? So somebody that is only focused on how somebody else feels, what somebody else is doing, gossiping, the neighbors, um, taking care of somebody else, right? That's the opposite of this. So self-consumed is going to be somebody who makes everything about themselves. They're working on their health, they're exercising, they're working out. Even more, they are caught up in personal development, uh, self-improvement, self-help. They are focusing on their house. They're focusing on their goals, on their vision, on their problems, on their sickness, on their disease, on themselves. So this part of the chapter is for people that have cut themselves off from the space and others and don't even consider how other people feel and what they're doing. So, for example, um, I've had people in my life, and I've done this too, that are so caught up in their pain and their suffering that they don't have room for anybody else. They don't have room for me. I remember when I was so caught up in my scarcity, in my poverty, in my suffering, that I was so wrapped up in trying just to not be homeless again or to just manage my homelessness that there was no room for me to care about other people. Oh, you need some help at your house? Oh, you won't need someone to watch your dog? Oh, oh, hey, do you need? I had no space for that because all of my resources were caught up in fixing myself. And so people do this in all sorts of other ways. And the narcissistic aspect of that is, right, that narcissistic cutoff, that your life is about you and you're so wrapped up in your stuff that you don't consider other people. So people, let's say, uh, basic, basic examples of this. It doesn't imply narcissism, but it's just an example of um, not considering others, right? So you say, let's say you're getting a glass of water and you only get a glass of water for yourself, even though every time you're around other people, there's other people, right? So you don't consider other people. Or um, let's say that you come to a workshop, and when you come to the workshop, you're so concerned about getting your breakthrough, right? We have people come to my workshops and they're looking for their breakthrough. They're trying to extract as much as they can. They're just so desperate in order to get their lesson or their feedback or their breakthrough that's going to help them. And you can feel what I'm doing here, right? It's this grasping energy. And so those people come to the workshops and they're so caught up in their stuff that they have to find that thing that's going to break them through. They're so consumed with their own problems or value or that they're getting enough for what they paid or whatever it is that they're not there showing up for anybody else. So what those people don't do is say, "Hey Andrew, do you need any help? Hey, is there anything I can do to help?" Or just start cleaning up. Or if they see things, just do it. Or raise their hand and contribute feedback. And the people that are only looking for feedback versus the people that are giving feedback, as paradoxical as it may sound, the people that are more generous and are more giving and are showing up contributing to a workshop that they've paid for are almost always more successful, are almost always more abundant, more generous, more gracious, more functional. It's the poverty mindset. It's the narcissistic mindset. It's the selfish. It's the self-consumed mindset that goes in and says, Andrew, I'm the one that paid you all this money. You should be fixing me. Why should I be giving feedback to anybody else and doing your job? Why should I be looking at myself on the screen and figuring out what's wrong with me? That's what I'm paying you for.
But it is a normal thing to do, yeah. It is
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
Like I think I started doing it when my dad died and I haven't been able to get out of it. It's like I care for other people, but I like distance myself and um I don't do it all the time, but I've noticed it more with family members, especially. Yeah. It is like I initially thought I'm just curious. I just listen more and I'm curious about what they're doing, but don't say I don't talk, I don't question them, I don't interrupt them. But I'm just because I had an issue with interrupting after COVID, where you weren't having those conversations in person. And when I come out of COVID, it was like I just wanted to talk to everybody as fast as possible because I hadn't talked to them for ages. So I had to get out of that, which I did. So I just don't talk and then listen. But it seems like I'm curious, but I just look after myself because everybody's talking so much in their pairs and I'm just there. My family's that sort of thing where I sit and they're talking about everything else and they never ask me how I am. So I just go and see them because I want to be connected to them in some way to get absorbed in that. But it feels nice. I do feel I'm there. The presence and my presence arrives, I do get there and I'm with them and I feel their presence. And then I go and try to give hugs as I leave. But I think it's good to do that, but I do sometimes think I'm a wee bit self-absorbed because I didn't give enough of myself over at times. Yeah. Because I think, as you say, you're there to like, we're all one, connectedness. So if I don't serve others or have this gratitude and things for others, then, how do I expect them to want to see me again, really?
Well, yeah.
Because I've
And
always had, yeah, I had to always give something to, to get something. And that's why I had the problem with the giving and receiving
yeah.
exercise.
Well,
Yeah.
when you give to get, it's a manipulation.
Yeah.
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 Great. Thanks for sharing. Anybody have any thoughts on the self-consumed answer I just shared? Hannah, Darun?
Um, I think there's been a point of contention in my work with you, Andrew, showing up for others. And I think it kind of clicked over the past few days that maybe how to show up because I didn't realize me as a person I identified with being like so helpful towards others and always being there for others and doing things for others. But that was so that I could get something in return. So, and I would do it out of martyrdom, and I wouldn't. It. I don't think I knew how to actually show up for others without something in it for me. Um, so in a way, it's still being self-consumed, isn't it? It's all about me when showing up for others and doing things for others, and so I'm trying to figure out how to show up for others. It feels good. Idealistically, it's good. I'd love to do that. But
Mm.
my
Yeah.
narcissism
So,
still.
yeah. So fill your cup up first. Take in so much that you have an excess. Your cup runneth over. Yeah. I remember so long from when I first heard this, I was like, yeah, caring about others sounds nice. I need to care about myself. When's anybody gonna fucking care about me? Like, I'm in trouble. Why? I why should I go and give money to charity? I'm fucking charity. I'm fucking homeless. Why should I? Right, so I had this mindset. It was also that mindset that kept me poor because there's so many other ways to be generous that aren't necessarily money. So the more the more of my needs that were met, the more space and bandwidth I had to help others, to meet other people's needs. And so right now, I'm able to meet lots of other people's needs and take care of lots of people in many different dimensions and ways because a lot of my cups are full, and I'm able to share that. And when they're filled, I want to. The natural thing is to want to. It's here's a great example. I got a new grill. I told you this today, but I'm smoking stuff on my grill and it's huge. I'm cooking this huge thing. It's like 8 pounds of meat. I'm not going to eat that all myself at once. And so I have so much of it and it tastes so good and it's delicious. And it's a new thing and I'm buzzed about it and there's this energy around it and I want to share. Try this. Oh my God, this tastes delicious. Try this. So the sharing is a natural result of having your needs met. Versus if there was only one bite, I'm probably less likely to want to share with lots of people if I only have one bite. So there is an element of abundance for certain things, not everything. Um, these are examples I give because they're things that I struggled with. Other people struggle with touch, right? Being able to um, be generous with their touch. Some people will touch. Some people will touch you under the guise of touching you, but what they're really doing is feeding off of you, getting their fulfillment of touch from you. Right? So instead of just asking, I need touch, they say, hey, would you like a hug? Hmm. So not wrong, not bad, not the end of the world. Lots more creepier, horrible ways to do things. But it's kind of like the giving to get. That's an example of someone giving the hug in order to get the hug, rather than saying, I have so much hug energy in me, I need to share this with somebody. And when you actually have that, you get so much more hug back and they get so much more hug. You build each other up. This is, if you see in the Awaken group, I think I posted hand movements of this in some video I did. It's generative. You're bringing something, they're bringing something, and 1 + 1 = 3. That's what a relationship should be. Two wholes coming together to create something greater than their sum. 1 + 1 = 3. That is making a child, right? Two adults come together and now there's three instead of two. It's magic. Magic. Esoteric magic shit right there. But if you say relationships are two halves coming together to create a whole, you have what's called
Codependency.
yes, exactly. Codependence. Yeah. You complete me. Wow, so romantic. Highly dysfunctional. You know the people that don't like that? You know the people that don't like when I say that or feel funny or don't like it? They're the codependent people. It's, I mean, finding who's codependent is super easy. You just make statements like this, right? Who here finds it romantic about two incomplete halves coming together to create a whole in relationships? And then you'll see the people that are codependent. Pretty pretty clear. It's not 100%, but another thing, right, is what I have a friend who passed away, I don't know, 15 years ago. And he said relationships aren't two people face to face looking at each other. It's two people side by side sharing the same vision, looking out in the same direction. Is it necessarily, I think, the number one top of the world? I don't know, but there's a good message in there. Are you caught up in the fantasy of each other? Or are you partners standing side by side, moving towards a single vision? Something to try on, something to think about. Does it mean you're not allowed to look at each other? No. But the ego likes to do this. A lot of people's egos hear these things, and then they assume that if one's true, the other is invalid. You know somebody's caught up in dualistic thinking. They're trapped in duality when if you say one thing is true, they say that something related or else you were talking about must not be true. They're not poles. That's true if you're in a polarity. If you're yang, then you must not be yin, right? If you're white, you must not be black. But if you're looking in front, it doesn't mean that you don't look to the side. It just means that you look to the front. If you say, I like Mexican food, it doesn't mean that you hate Italian. But when you're caught in either or duality, all of these scales are happening all the fucking time. And a lot of them aren't even true. They're not even the real scales. Anybody else? Anything else? The room?
Just there's another roadblock. Well, another thing that popped up is getting my cup filled before looking after others. Truly, I think feels very selfish. Um,
Yeah.
and so then I'm caught up in this hybrid. I don't want to be selfish, but then I don't want to share and don't want to be generous, and but I want to share, and but that if that means I need to fill my cup up, it's like,
Yeah. Follow the selfishness until its logical conclusion. This is where cinesomatics is magic, because we would have you do this. Right? Show me. This is what this I have this in the first three archetypes we do on the archetype assessment. Selfishness and generosity for this very reason. What is your relationship with selfishness? Is it what you think it is? And often finds what often finds often finds that's good. Often finds oftentimes what I find through the movement is that, let's say, somebody's being selfish. Well, you do this for a long enough time, and eventually, oh, oh. Did you guys catch that? Did you guys see that transition? That's sort of ideal, magical, cinesomatic, in the moment transformation. Oftentimes, that is accompanied with crying and the realization that you can share, you can give and receive simultaneously. Realization, perhaps, that you haven't let yourself receive anything. Perhaps the realization that what you thought was being selfish was you actually just getting your needs met. Having a party over there?
sorry, like I said, Nicole's grandma passed away last week. I'm in my mother-in-law, father-in-law's house, and they're trying to organize things for.
That's fine.
But no, I should have told them earlier.
This is a community call. No concern if you have special surprise guests. And very, very respectful, as we would be in a workshop where there's not people allowed, but no pressure here today.
No, it's just the point. I'm like, okay, next time I will tell them. In another meeting, you can come in, but do your thing. But for these ones,
yeah. You can't come in during my special meetings.
That's right.
Yes, my special meetings.
Yeah.
No. So was that making sense about this selfishness? How through cinesomatics we can find out the truth, see what was
absolutely
underneath it, and move through that.
And I've obviously experienced a few of that myself, like doing that movement, and then slowly it just transforms. So,
yeah,
it's a consistency of doing that until it becomes
It's one way. That's one thing that could happen. Another thing that could happen would be to do the opposite, right? Reverse wiring, seeing if there's a reverse wiring there. Be really selfish. Okay. All right. Now, what's the opposite movement? Maybe this. Okay. Well, that's interesting. That might reveal something. Is this best ideal? I wouldn't say so, but it reveals something. Okay. And so when you have the sort of your sort of baseline archetype, and then you have the opposite, that it's really cool, because just by doing the opposite helps define the baseline, right? And so you don't even have to think of anything else or figure anything else out. But if one thing is this and the other is this, and that's the opposite, you can know the opposite by knowing the opposite, right? So you get more data on what your relationship with selfishness is, even by doing the opposite, even if you're not reverse wired. And
So
maybe you do this and it comes in and then you feel guilty, right? And then you say, all right, well, can you do this without, I don't know, what would guilty look like? I don't know, something like that, right? Okay, well, what would that look like without doing all that, without the guilt? And then, so these are all just various ways through cinesomatics, through the embodiment work, that instead of just being like, I'm afraid of being selfish, but I want to be generous, but I don't know how to be generous because none of my needs are met. What do I do? And, spend 2 years trying to figure that out. In 2 minutes, we can see exactly what's going on, and save people lifetimes and years and decades of struggle with this stuff, because it's all right there.
it's interesting. I think part of my struggle with movement is I start the movement and then I just go in my head and I
Mm.
don't realize in my head after a while, and then I'm wondering why there's no connection. All right. And I think like I have to make sense of this movement and this, okay, this looks like, let's see the video, let's see the mirror. This looks like me giving and receiving, but it's not actually connected to a visceral feeling of giving and receiving. And I think when you say things are coming up, it's what are the feelings that are coming up, not like how am I analyzing this. And I lose that distinction um, of this looks like this rather than no, it's actually not, it looks like this. It's what it feels like, isn't it? Yeah, it's just, I think that's part of my frustration that I've noticed when doing the movement at a consistent basis again, that
It's
5, 10
literally
minutes later,
it's literally a sixth sense, right? So instead of
okay.
processing through seeing or thinking,
Mm,
you're processing through feeling.
mm,
What does it feel like versus what does this look like?
mm.
Because the look like is more of an analysis comparison
Yes.
going on in your head.
Well, it's really interesting as well because what I've also noticed is I've actually proxied my feelings using my thinking as a proxy of feeling, believing that is feeling.
Yeah,
And as
that's
I do the
it's
move,
what that looks like for folks to understand that what you just said is, and what that looks and sounds like is when somebody says, "Well, I think I feel,"
mm,
they're processing their feelings through thinking, which means they're not feeling, they're thinking. Anytime
except I
some,
don't realize I'm doing that. I'm just
yeah,
like, yeah, I'm
you could
feeling.
be more trickier and
Mm,
just not say that you may not say thinking, even
yeah.
though, so some people do that. They say, "Well, I really feel," and I'm able to, I'm able to see all of that. It's just through a deeper sense that I can't communicate in a book
Mm,
through a simple rule like that. That's a simple rule when someone says, "I think I feel," pretty obvious.
mm.
But if I say, "Well, I feel," I have to, it all comes back to feeling. I have to see them. I have to feel them.
Mm,
Do you have to do a grinding exercise, like getting into your body, that embodiment first, or you do the arms?
What?
No, do you have to like
Grinding?
Grounding.
grind
Oh.
yourself as in like
or
trying to
ground.
get into your body somehow by, the other four senses of
Mm-hmm.
like touch or feeling or taste
Yeah.
or
Yep. Yep.
something that gets you in your body first before you
Mm,
start the movement and try and keep that alive
mm,
somehow.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Oftentimes, um, yeah, we have all sorts of little tricks. You can lick your
Like touching
fingers
your
or wet
skin.
your fingers
Yeah,
and feel the air on your fingertips and get the
yeah.
sensation, sensuality. You could do some visualization. I tend to not do a lot of visualization because people tend to visualize in their head. It can work. Imagine, like kind of like feeling imagine, like feel your connection to the earth. Some visualization is helpful. I tend to just do more physical stuff, tasting, smelling. Yeah, you usually more tangible things feel more tangible. Just smelling something doesn't isn't like it isn't as effective as feeling something to get into a grounded sense, but it does. It can help. So yeah, actually getting into your body more, grounding, getting into your body more, um, before and during any of the cinesomatic movement exercises, is very helpful. Um, eventually, you want to live from that place. What you don't want to do is for the next 50 years have to, before you knock on someone's door, do a magical grounding exercise and then knock on the door. You're just living your life. That's better than nothing, I guess, but it's still a strategy. It's still a state-based. It's still a technique-based way. This work is very advanced, and it is a being way of being rather than having to do those things. But in the beginning, to get into it, we do have practices, we do have techniques to practice, but they're practices, not necessarily. I mean, luckily for me, I can do this for a living. Not everybody does this, and that's their living. But the more you
Yeah,
do
I
these
learned
things,
one.
yeah.
I learned one this week. It was for for staying calm, even though you go into a situation that's going to be really tense. And and it
Take a
was
shot of tequila.
yeah, yeah, it was get your senses to ground yourself and try and stay grounded. If something happens, don't tend to stay grounded. And it was like this one where you imagine that somebody had cut up a lemon and stuck one and half of the lemon in each of your hands. And then what you have to do is to bring the hand to your face and as if it's coming towards your mouth. So you actually do, taste it near or
Mm-hmm.
imagine you taste it. So it's just to get you out of the room or out of whatever's happening around you to
Mm.
get you into yourself or into the now view and think of
That kind of
this.
seems like the exact opposite of what we do. Yeah, that's going to take you out of the room. In this work, we want to get you back into your body and
I know,
into
I know, I know. That's what I was thinking. That one sort of keeps me away from everyone, but I
yeah.
was trying to work out how I connect the two.
Yeah. Well, you could grab a real lemon, bite it, and then offer it to someone else in the room. Hey,
That
you want this
sounds good.
lemon? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try that instead.
Imaginary or real? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else, Tarun? Great. Hannah?
Um, I had something I was going to share and then I kind of lost it. But along the lines of,
The self-consumed we were talking about earlier.
yeah. I've found that as I've dove deeper into this work the last few years, I've been showing up for people less than I ever have. Like I've felt like I've become more self-consumed. And then also uncovering that I how much I was it was related to processing my feelings through my head. I do that all the time. I'm constantly going, I think, I feel, and I'm running everything I'm feeling through like my rational mind. And that was part of my strategy, I think, in showing up for people because I could always rationalize. I could always like dig deeper and show up when other people were falling apart. And it was like a, what I thought was like a strength, but I didn't realize how much I was abandoning myself in that. But then I also was really filled up by showing up for people and being able to take care of them.
Yeah.
And
But you weren't.
like it felt
But you understand it wasn't. Is narcissism
Right, but I
supply?
thought that it was. I felt energized. I felt valuable. I felt, you know,
Right.
um
But do you see now?
and
Hold on, stop. Yeah, you're not listening. Do you hear what I'm saying? Is narcissistic supply?
yeah.
Explain.
Yeah, I was using that to um I was getting off on the fact that I felt like I was stronger than other
Superior.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a superiority thing. Um and so there was a certain like getting off on it, like I can do this. Um and and so I would feel proud of myself. I would feel a certain yeah, sense of value and worth. And then a certain superiority in it. And then my I guess kind of related to people pleasing. Um, that was kind of fueling a bit of the narcissistic supply too. Um, and it was about my image of being helpful, of being giving and generous, being selfless, being strong. It was all feeding that image that I held of myself.
Yeah. And so you take all of that that works for the people that you've attracted, and you bring that here into this work, and you're devastated because all those manipulations fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm left with who am I when I'm not doing those things?
Yeah, which is somebody that
What's
you don't
even
want to look at.
left?
Yeah.
And then now I've struggled with how do I take care of people in a new way?
Yeah, it has to be a
And
new
then
way.
now it's become every time I take care of someone, I feel like I am just totally abandoning myself. And so I've struggled to find a new balance in a way that feels
Without martyring yourself.
reciprocal. Yeah, without martyring
Yeah.
myself.
So yeah, you're screwed on both sides.
Mhm.
Yeah. Fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've discovered as well that I don't trust that anyone is going to take care of me, which I think is part of what developed that pattern of just like, well, I'm just going to be the one that can always carry everyone on my back, and then I'll get my sense of pride and worth from that, and I don't need anyone to take care of me because I take care of everyone else.
And hiding out in that,
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're suffering.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's so
And
interesting, Andrew, like we were talking about in our session, how there's like a systemic thing, isn't it? The self-abandonment, you do the self-abandonment to get you what you want, like just say the pride, the being looked after. But in order to do that, you have to self-abandon yourself. You have to abandon yourself. But we don't know any other way, so we keep just doing it, and then we just abandoning, and then but we get the pride, and then we abandon, and we get the pride, and it's completely effed, isn't it? It's like the only way we know how to do it, but
Yeah,
to
the
get
only
what
way
we think
out.
we need.
Right? What's the only way out?
To
Just
stop.
keep following the lights. Just go toward the lights.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. I guess that's maybe
I
another
just
way
want
of
to know what the
dying.
way out
Yeah.
is.
Julie says
death.
the only way out is death. Yes.
Where the light is,
Yes. Towards the
everybody's going
light.
to the one light force.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Yes.
Who said stop, Darun? Was that you? Somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
ruin. A plus.
Yeah. Julie D for death.
But it's interesting, Hannah, because remember in the last fellowship call, I was saying something on the last one, the one before I said, I'm great in a crisis. And it just clicked that narcissistic supplier, the sense of superiority. I love being able to take care of everyone, being stronger than everyone else. That I could be the one that I was great in the crisis, everyone else would be buckling, and I'd be the
Yep.
one just carrying everyone's shoulders on. It just clicks, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me too.
I think you just take up the reins because everybody stops and you're like, do something. Like, so I would just be the one that goes that I'll do it for everyone because nobody's doing it.
Mm.
Like I get frustrated that other people won't move because I want to move. I don't want to stay here, like in this, whatever this is. Like, I want to be progressing.
Mm.
But at some point, you think you're progressing, but really you're not. Then is
Yeah.
that am I being fooled by myself? Yeah.
Probably because in this work, it's anytime somebody talks about progress, they're in for it. Yeah, looking for progress is the opposite of stopping. So, we, yeah, yeah. What are you progressing towards? You're already there. Yeah.
But are we not all like a prism? Like it's a prism, and everybody's light beam, like you said last time, everybody's beams of light are going wherever they're going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so should we not
What
be
is
looking at
that?
each other where we're
Does
going? We just go into the abyss,
what?
unknowing where's ahead. Are we not meant to like have a focus point?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Or yeah.
So you're kind of
Oh,
doing the thing that I talked about earlier, is that if one thing isn't, or one thing is, then the other isn't, kind of thing. So you can have a focus and go where you want. You can have projects where you're making progress in an area of your life. But when it comes to this work and the transformation and the healing is subtractive. So it's the ego that wants to make progress.
yeah, but how do I make my dim light brighter? Like how do I fill
Yeah,
myself up? Like,
sure. You
yeah.
remove all of the gunk that's covering up that light that's already eternally bright. You're subtracting all of the stuff that's dimming your light. Like if you have a windshield or a glass lantern and it's got a bunch of mud all over it. That's what we're doing here. We're subtracting all that mud that allows that light to shine because it's built in. That it's you. You don't need to add anything to that. You're born with it. And over time, it just gets gunked up. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken.
So I can just stop and
Yeah.
start cleaning that up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I need to concentrate on.
Yeah.
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 Subtracting all of the stuff that isn't you, that prevents you from being in a relationship and plugged into your true self. But the people that are trying to make it and progress and add and become more and all this stuff, most of those people are in suffering. Now, it's different than growth or learning or expansion or organic of unfolding or emerging. One's directed by the ego and the assumption that where you're at now isn't enough, or where you're at now is wrong. And it's very advanced in the way that you have to understand that this is about your true self, not about a tangible, let's say, business or yard project, right? If you have a goal in your life, yes, there's steps and progress, right? But you are not a goal. You are not a job. So it's not like we say, oh, I'm making progress through my to-do list. Oh, can't do that at all. No, it's not what we're saying. But when you're, say, I have clients that come in and we're together for a month and they're like, man, I still feel these emotions. I'm like, no shit. A, it's only been a month. And B, you have an assumption that you'll eventually reach a point where you no longer feel emotions. And that's not what this work is about. So, yeah, let's see. I think that's full circle back. Maybe stop fixing and start living, and then also maybe an equation for suffering. Oh, and the chapter just stop. So those are all great chapters for these concepts. And maybe arriving to now if you want a bonus. All right, great. Well, thanks everybody. Great questions and contributions.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Yeah,
Have a
you.
lovely
thank you.
week.
Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
Andrew.
You're welcome.
Bye,
See you next
everyone.
time. Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.